So, Paul, I know you're really big into incrementality and kind of the considerations here. So, why don't you talk through some of the thoughts that people need to look into or think about when analyzing, did something work, whether it's promotional activity or a price drop or advertising? How do you determine when it's incremental? What's your thought process there?
Yeah, so I've got, in particular, I had two clients this year where this became, really a critical issue. One was one I mentioned a few minutes ago. They're in a category that is really good. Has nothing to do with Christmas per se, but it's family gatherings, events, things like that. And so this is a great time of year. Thanksgiving, as they said, it was, we did the research. It was all this, spiking, 300% increases in search volume and all these relevant terms. But, this time of year, as everybody knows, it gets very competitive. And so, your cost per click bids are aggressive, and, we're looking at the numbers, and you're seeing these costs on your paid advertising and, whatever, they're 20%, 25%, whatever the number is. And, so again, the question becomes, well, should we do this? I mean, in general, there's organic ranking and all that, but in general, there's not much point to do something if you're just going to lose money the more volume you do. So, to really evaluate that, you have to look at the total A cost. You can't just say, oh, my advertising A cost is, again, whatever, 20%. That's too much. I'm losing money. You have no way to know that until you know the impact of that advertising on incremental organic sales, and therefore what's the total A cost. And there's just so many moving pieces. There's the seasonality, there's the ad spend, and it just frankly was not possible in this case to be able to parse out, sort of the flywheel effect. What is this advertising doing? The advertising specifically doing to organic, because of course the organic's going up, but that's because it's seasonal. How much is the advertising doing? And we couldn't get to that number, and we had to pull back because we just had no way to quantify. So, that was one example. And the other is, a client that is unlike the one I just talked about, which is not dependent on Q4. The other client, Q4 is critical to their financial performance. And so, they have a budgeted allowable A cost, and, a bunch of their campaigns are running below that. And so, we talked about, well, let's get more aggressive. But, because they've really got to watch their margin this time of year, they wanted to know, well, if I get more aggressive, what's the incremental organic and total A cost? And again, because of where we're at right now, we couldn't, we weren't able to quantify it exactly. And so they said, we're just not comfortable getting more aggressive unless we know the incremental return. So those are two examples. And at the end of the day, it gets back to the earlier comment, is you got to plan this stuff like in August and September next year. And you've got to set up testing controls. And that means that, you may have products that you're not going to advertise, or you're not going to run a coupon on, or whatever the case may be, come Q4, but there's just no other way to do it. And so I always give the example of a price test we did with a third client. And so you pick, whatever it is, a couple of key variations, product lines, and then you've got to find, I'm going to call it variations, not items, but, you've got to find, you have to have like multiple variations in a product line, and you got to look at them and look at some history. And okay, they're getting similar traffic, the conversion rates similar, all these things look similar. And I'm going to kind of watch it for 30 days. And yep, they're behaving the same. And now I'm going to take, this one, and I'm going to heavy up advertising, and take this one and do a coupon, and this one I'm not going to do anything. That's the only way to be able to, kind of do that in October. And that's the only way come November where you can probably answer the questions that we couldn't answer this year that I talked about because we just, we just didn't get out in front of the Q4 early enough with the client so, again, it's a test and control, but you got to do it. You can't do it in November. You got to do it ahead of it to take advantage of it.
One thing I'd also add is there's some tools that you can use like Profit Peak, right, to test pricing. There are obviously with any content, you can do A/B testing through experiments and Splitly or other tools. But I would say one of the biggest tactics we use is try something in a small scale and measure and see how did that impact, in total. For example, if I start advertising this item, how did the total organic and advertised revenue get impacted? Excuse me, coughing fit.
While you're getting take a drink of water.
So one thing that a client worked with us this year on was what if we basically double our ad spend, and we came up with an analysis for them to quantify what we thought it would be. And what I always suggest is it's very tough in Amazon world to fully quantify what it's going to be, but I don't like to work too slow either. So just try something with a hypothesis and see, did it pan out the way you expected with a small subset of product before you roll it out holistically? And hopefully that's enough to kind of prove something out where you can determine, was there incrementality, even if you can't necessarily break down to the detail you're hoping for.
Yeah, and I just so to make it clear, measuring quite accurately the impact of paid on organic, that's something we do all the time. That's not the issue. The issue was doing it in the second half of November and in December, when there's all of this unrelated seasonality going on. Just to clarify for people, it's definitely something you need to be doing, that measuring the flywheel effect. It's just Q4 where there's just so many additional considerations and it gets quite complex.
All right. So, So,
this slide is brought to you by Target Corporation.
And before we get into that slide, I'm just going to throw something out there that we're talking about some pretty, we do this day in, we live and breathe this, right? I think all of us here, one of the things I love about our team is that this isn't work to us. We do this probably from 7 a.m. until 8, 9 p.m. sometimes, and it's not work. But this is a complicated topic, and I just wanted to throw out there that I don't think it's said enough that if this is not your cup of tea, get somebody to do it who's really good at it, because as a seller, you should be focusing on, and you should have a team of people, and your team should be focusing on what they're talented at and what they're good at and what they love. If you're trying to force this and you're not good at these numbers and good at looking at these trends and advertising and all this, get somebody else who can do it, because I promise you the money investment will exponentially pay back, your investment to do that. But anyway, so jump in. I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's a good point, Wes. That's, what I find generally is that there's people that have different skill sets, and one person that's operational focused is probably not creative and more of an advertiser, for example. So that's one of the beauties of how we operate here at Prime Guidance, is that we augment your team with a consultant that's had deep experience in this, and we're able to help fill those gaps. And better yet, even coach your team around building those skills and expanding the team to incorporate those skills that are necessary. Because oftentimes the team is not it's not inclusive enough of all the skills that are necessary to really excel on Amazon.
True. Yep.
So, how do you retarget and nurture customers? So, the key here is Amazon has now presented you with a lot of new customers, a lot of new impressions and traffic that converted to sales, hopefully, or if it didn't, at least you've got customers that saw your products and your ads. So how do we go about retargeting them? And there's multiple tactics here that should be used. One is making sure that you're enabling sponsored display ads with retargeting. You really want to go after people that have viewed and purchased your product. You can also select to go after those that have gone and purchased competitive products. If you have a DSP account, you can also place ads off Amazon in addition to on Amazon. And where that's particularly helpful is when customers have disengaged with a brand, DSP can allow you to target only those customers that have not purchased from your brand for X number of days. Let's say it's a supplement and the customer should be buying them every 30 days. They haven't engaged in 3 months. That's the time to reinvest your marketing to try and pull them back. Plan for promotional activity when customers are planning to reengage. So we gave the example of a 30-day supplement. If a customer bought it on Black Friday, we know that they're probably going to start using it pretty soon after. 30 days later, that customer is going to be back on Amazon looking for a replacement of that in all likelihood. Your competitors are going to be trying to steal that customer away from you. So you want to make sure that you're present and you're doing all the right things with your advertising, with your things like drawing them in with coupons and other things to entice them to make a purchase from you versus a competitor, especially when you have subscribe and save. If you get them to acquire that first purchase, they come back and they like it already, that one ad that you spend to draw them into your brand now becomes an ad that, let's say 40% of the customers that buy your product are subscribe and save. You're basically taking that 40% of customers off the table where you don't have to market to them anymore going forward. It's a much better advertising strategy that can be much more cost efficient. Inserts can be used to request customer reviews, maybe showcase your social media, get customers to absorb valuable content on your website. For example, you're selling a product that needs help with installation. You're selling exercise equipment. Give them a link that says, you scan this QR code to learn how to assemble this. Or maybe you have a product that you're offering an extended warranty, normal 12-month warranty, but they can register and get an extra 6 months warranty for free. Or maybe you're selling a product that is a consumable and there's valuable recipes or how to use this, things that are helpful to the customer. If you put it into an insert in a way that's above board within Amazon terms of service, it's providing value to the customer and it's asking for reviews, not a 5-star review, just asking for their honest feedback. There's nothing wrong with that. That allows you to use those customers that purchased in a much better way. You're able to make sure that they're satisfied. You're able to nurture them and increase your lifetime value of them. If the customer does go to your website, it's always wise to have a pop-up mode on your website for any purpose. Customer goes there. If they are not logged into their account and you don't know who they are, upon exit, we always recommend, give them a promotional offer with an email capture when the customers are on your website before they leave. Not right away. Don't pop it up in their face immediately. But upon exit, it's a good way to capture their information and be able to remarket to them and hopefully keep them engaged. So I'm sure the team has some thoughts on this. Go ahead and share any thoughts you guys have.
Well, I'll jump in really fast, and then I know Paul, you and Robert had some stuff. I'm just going to say, I encourage all my clients. I say it all the time, and I know I had a client recently say, think like your customer. But honestly, one of the things that I think takes your good or average Amazon seller and makes them excellent is the seller are the sellers that think like their customers. I'm surprised whenever I talk to new clients. One of the things I ask them, on the first call is, how many of your competitor products have you purchased to look at them? And they go, wait, what? Yeah, none. Or a lot of them say none. And that sounds a little bit, extreme, but you know what? If you look at the best sellers for some of your keyword phrases that you are targeting and you're converting well for, and someone is doing better than you organically in that search rank, buy that product, see what the customer's doing, because you might find out that there's some really good ideas on packaging, inserts, seeing all the things that you just said. Invest that money and go look at those products. And also look at what they're doing wrong, improve on it. And I know we say this to our clients all the time, and I'll stop at this, but when it comes down to thinking like your customer, look at your reviews, good and bad, your questions, look at your competitors' questions, good and bad. I do that. And as a seller, I used to do it on a weekly basis. It's something that I would print out for later, because I'm big on, I know a lot of folks will use iPads and all that. I'm big on printing and highlighting and making notes on paper and keeping it on my desk. But it's something that when I left work, I would take my stack of reviews and questions, home or, to the den or whatever. And I would sit there and highlight things. And I would make changes all the time based on that kind of information.
Yep. Yeah. Wes, you kind of took the steam from me when you said buy.
I'm sorry, man.
No. You say how many of them have actually bought. I sometimes say, have you even looked at your competitors' detail pages? Have you put there your ASIN or your top competitors into Helium 10 and clicked get competitors? Find out who the top 10 are and make sure that's part of your Monday routine of, you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but just see how much, what their count is. And if it's going up quickly, that they're getting sales, but then reading, those things critically important to the Q&A stuff there. You learn so much. I use that thing as a consumer, the Q&A, because often I find that a lot of sellers just don't do a good job explaining their product. But when somebody asks the question, another consumer will often answer it. And I learn things that way, from it. You can
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I think, we talked about some of the postmortem, reporting and so forth. Analyzing your ranking is one of the things we called out, but you also should be monitoring your competitors' ranking. So,
yes.
For example, one of the tactics we're going to talk about here in inventory in a minute is your competitors may have run out of stock. Well, you'll see that very clearly if all of a sudden you're monitoring your competitors' ranking, their ranking drops and yours climbs up by one. You know that you gained, in ranking simply for the fact that your competitor went out of stock. How are you going to leverage that strategy to your advantage? How are you going to target them? And also, in talking to inserts, you're going to see some competitors use inserts that are not in alignment with terms of service. Be very, very careful with inserts. We always guide our clients around doing it above board. So if you're planning to do an insert strategy, which we often do recommend, make sure that you consult with us so you don't get yourself in trouble. You want to make sure that you're doing things that are in alignment with terms of service. But if you do it well, it can really help reduce your return rates. It can help improve customer satisfaction. It can, take situations where you otherwise would never have been able to talk to the customer, and now all of a sudden they're able to contact you and you're able to resolve an issue where it may be as simple as I wasn't sure how to use it, or I thought I bought the wrong thing or something, and you can walk them through how to make sure that they understand how to use it, and if they did buy the wrong thing, help them remedy the situation. You can take some of those metrics off of Amazon by satisfying those customers. That's to your advantage.